we're going to start with a short introduction. Then I'm going to make you a brief summary of the KA1 mobility projects that we're going to focus on in this webinar, and a summary of the changes in the Erasmus 2025 and 2026 guide. Very quick tips about how to apply for funding, and the most important, one of the most important parts will be that we're going to divide in rooms in different discussions according to the sector where you're working in, like adult education, school education, or vocational training, yeah, at the end. So please stay with us until the end. So to introduce myself, I'm Anca Dudău. I'm the president of Eduplus Association, as I mentioned, and I have experience with Erasmus Plus projects since 2008. And the first time I participated in an Erasmus project was when I was 13 in the Comenius, former school education and then youth in action, and Erasmus has changed my life. And I'm super excited to dedicate my professional life to help other organizations, to help learners and staff to have this amazing experience, intercultural experience across Europe through the Erasmus Plus program. So I'm a trainer of trainers of non-formal education, which is my big passion. And we organize here training courses for teachers and staff in Tenerife, but we also have local projects with seniors. We've done several K2 projects and so on. So a bit about us, while more people are joining us. We are a consortium of different local organizations located here in Tenerife. We have different environmental organizations that work with social inclusion, and we do different types of training courses, teaching sustainability, like we visit permaculture farms, ecological gardens. We do environmental education through outdoor education because we've seen that outdoor education works much better in terms of promoting inclusion and creating connection to the nature and promoting sustainability values. We also have courses on artificial intelligence and on digital tools outdoors because we need to get updated with the latest technology, and we also specialized in how to integrate such digital tools with outdoor. When we teach about social inclusion, we focus on experiential learning. So we believe that people need to get in the shoes of the persons with disadvantaged learners, such as the Erasmus priorities mention it, and we use a lot of non-verbal methods because the conventional education many times is too much focused on the intellectual part, on speaking, listening, writing, reading, and a lot of disadvantaged learners get behind because of language obstacles or paperwork obstacles and so on. So we've seen that nonverbal methods and theater techniques really help in boosting the confidence and the participation of learners with from disadvantaged background. It increases soft skills, so we have courses on key competencies and social and personal skills through such innovative methods. And we also have a course on democratic participation and increasing intercultural skills through practical active learning methods. So yeah, this was a very brief presentation about us. If you want to read more, you can check our website. So now I think most of us were online, so welcome everyone. And I'm going to make a brief introduction about the Erasmus program. As you know, it's very wide. So I'm going to focus on the K1 project. As you know, Erasmus has different sectors. We're going to focus in this webinar for adult education, school education, and vocational training, because these are the three sectors that have K1 staff mobility projects. But of course, if you are working in any of the other sectors, you're welcome to keep on in the webinar and network with the other organizations. So who can apply for Erasmus funds? I'm sure a lot of you, I've seen a lot of people that we already know. A lot of you already know this, but I make a very brief presentation about the general part about Erasmus. just so we have a common understanding, and in case we have some new people who haven't had deep knowledge on Erasmus so far. So you can apply if you are educational center, school, companies that work with educational topic or social topic or environmental topic, non-profit organizations, associations, foundations, youth organization, public authorities, research institute, and in the guide you can find a complete list. You cannot apply as an individual person or a not registered entity. Yeah. So for the K1 mobility projects, this is what we're focusing on in this webinar, is how to apply to get funds for flights, accommodation, food, organizational support, and training fee. Yeah. So you can send your staff and your volunteers abroad for a course or training course, or you can send your learners, and later I will explain more about it. So as you know, it's very important to be aligned with the Erasmus priorities, which is inclusion and diversity, participation in democratic life, environmentally and sustainable practices, key competencies, and digital transformation. Yeah. So make sure whenever you write a project or choose the courses or job shadowing and so on, that you argue that are related to this, at least one or two of these priorities. So for K1 mobility for individuals, you can choose to, in the same project, you can ask grant to send both staff and volunteers and learners. This is very important. Yeah, Erasmus Plus is valuing more and more, including mobilities both for staff and for learners. Later, I will give more details. So here I prepared an example of the deadline of a timeline. For example, the if you apply now for the next deadline, 19th of February, 2026, you would probably get the results of the application selection, the project selection stage in June, August, depending from country to country. So it might take 1 or 2 months more before you sign the contract and receive the budget. So your project should start before December, but make sure you do not plan mobilities or any actions before. I would recommend October, November, because it could be that there are delays with the paperwork. Yeah, except your organization can put up the money. Yeah. So it's also important to have into account that even if you make a project of 6 months, 1 year, or 1.5 year, the process doesn't really finish then. Then you have to write the final report in the first 2 months and wait for the report approval before sometimes you receive some of the last budget, yeah, the 20%. And you also need to have into account that for now we have the program until 2027. That means that this year, 19 February 2026, is the year before the last year you can apply for funds, which will be February 2027. So you only have 2 opportunities left for this program, and we don't know if in the next program period starting in 2028, which of the Erasmus categories or funding opportunities will have there. Yeah, so it might be that these are the last 2 options, at least for staff mobility. Yeah. At the moment, what you can apply for is training courses for staff and volunteers, job shadowing visit, where you go to observe an organization, teaching abroad, so one of your staff can go abroad and teach in another similar organization, or you can invite an expert, a trainer from abroad that you know, to come to teach at your organization. And very important, very, very important, it's good to include mobilities for learners. If you do so, only then you can arrange a preparatory visit with the organization where you plan to do the mobility for learners. So only if you do mobility for learners, you can do a preparatory visit. Yeah. A bit about the budget. So for example, for the training courses, the difference, I mean, all of the mobilities have individual support, have budget for travel, for flights, which depends to the distance. With the Erasmus distance calculator, you can calculate the distance and according to that the amount of the budget. And organizational support, which varies from the type of mobility you have. Yeah. So for courses, you also have a course fee for the host organization that is 80 euro per day. Yeah. This is the standard Erasmus Plus fee of 80 euro per day. And the duration can be between 2 and 10 days, and one participant can participate maximum 10 days course per project. Yeah. And since the change is one course per project. For job shadowing visit, it's similar. The only difference that there's no specific fee for the host organization, so you have to use the organizational support budget in order to organize the visit. Yeah. And it's similar for teaching abroad and inviting experts. This is very important that Erasmus does not have funding for the salary, but it does have funding for the individual support and travel. So about learner mobilities, it's a very important distinction between two types of learning mobilities that I wanted to put focus on. Because there are often misunderstandings. Yeah, there's the individual mobility and the group mobility, and many people think that individual mobility is if you send only one person, and group mobility if you send two or more person. But this is not the case. In the Erasmus guide, it's very well, very specifically written that even if you select the individual mobility option, you can send as a group. What is the difference? The difference is that you'd have an individual learning program. What that means that each person with individual mobility will have their own like specifically made for them program, including formal, non-formal methods, informal learning methods, but it has specific planning. Yeah, and in this case you have organizational support of 350 euro per person. In the case of group mobility, it's a more simple type of activity. It's like you go with a group and do volunteering in another organization or an existing resources. What does it mean? For example, imagine there is a festival, local festival here in Spain that we organize, and you come during this festival that's already organized. Yeah, festival of educational activities, of course, no, or cultural activities. Or there is a training that is already happening, or conference or something that is already happening here, and then you come as any other participant, so nothing specially is organized for you. Yeah, so this is the big difference. Also the organizational support, as you see, is different. So if you want to have a program that is specifically designed for your learners, especially having into account language barriers and translations, then probably it's better to choose the individual mobility, so you can have a bit more of organizational support to organize it. So a scenario, an example of an organization, let's say a school or an association from Poland, can write a KA1 mobility project for 1 year, and in the same project they can include to send 6 teachers to 6 days training course in Spain, like 3 teachers in one hand and 3 teachers on the other course, 2 staff to 3 job shadowing visits, 2 staff to preparatory visits in Italy, 10 learners to individual mobility in Italy, and 5 students to group mobility in Greece. Yeah, so in one project you can have in total maximum 30 mobilities. As you see here, it's less than 30 mobilities. There's also Erasmus accreditation that was meant for having a multi-year plan until 2027. Now there are only 2 years left, so even if you apply now in October, you would only have one year left to apply, which is February 2027. But we don't know what would happen with the accredited organizations in starting 2028. We don't know if Erasmus will continue or not with this accreditation. Of course, everything I've been saying, and it's in the Erasmus Plus program guide. I forgot to mention at the beginning, we are not an official Erasmus Plus team. We are an association that have experience with Erasmus Plus for many years, but if you have any doubts about what has been mentioned during this webinar, please consult your national agency or the Erasmus Plus guide. And as you know, it has almost 500 pages, so it's very difficult to make a summary, but I've tried to make it easier for you to really highlight the changes for 2027, which are actually quite minor. The first one is regarding job shadowing. So you can no longer send, for example, 6 job shadowing with the same person at the same institution. You can still send more than 2 persons, but they need to have several mentors. Yeah. So in the documents, you need to be careful to write that the persons are shadowing different mentors, different persons inside the local organization. The second change for 2026 is that it's a small mention that the host organization staff must lead the mobility. Yeah, so it's no longer accepted. It never was, but now it's more highlighted in the Erasmus that if you go from your country to another country, you cannot have only the paperwork signed by the host organization, and that you, as sending organization trainers, are in charge of making the mobility. You really need to have local engagement and active participation in the local organization. Yeah. Third is that subsidiaries of the sending organization cannot host mobility. So, for example, Red Cross cannot send Red Cross Spain cannot send staff or learners to Red Cross Italy. Yeah, but they have to go into a different type of organization. Feel free to write your questions in the chat, and at the end we will try to answer as many of the questions as possible. So fourth change in 2027 is actually not a change. This is something that was already in the guide, but it's put more emphasis on the fact, especially for adult education, that you need to prove the link between the participant in the mobility and the sending organization. Yeah. So in the case of staff mobility, you need to have employment contract or volunteer contract. And in the case of learner mobility, you need to prove that they actually are taking part in an educational activity locally in your organization. Yeah. So this already existed before, but there are more specification about what national agency can require and how they can control this. Fifth is a small change saying that that you can have the mobility in an alternative venue that is different from the host organization's venue, but Erasmus Plus does not fund the local transportation, the national transportation to the alternative venue. So for example, imagine that we are located in Tenerife. So if we do a mobility in another island or in mainland Spain, you would only get the transportation to Tenerife, but not get funded the transportation to another island or to another city in the same country. We will send this presentation to all of you, so you have all the information in if you need to recap. I'll go through the most important changes in 2025. I see some of you have already been in our webinar last year, so I'm sorry to repeat, but for the new persons and also to recap, I think it's good to have in mind the latest changes. Yeah. So very important is the funding limits for the school and vocational training sectors. Very important, this does not apply to adult education. For school and vocational training now, since last year in 2025, at least 50% of the project grants should be dedicated to some other types of mobilities than learner mobilities. Yeah. So you can no longer have a project only with teachers going to training courses. You need to include job shadowing, experts, and learner mobilities. Yeah. A ratio more or less would be 1 teacher for every 2 students, but of course it depends on travel distance budgets and many aspects. Yeah. But this is important to have into account because it's something even for adult education that is not a restriction, we recommend to have this into account because most probably evaluators value highly if you include learner mobilities or other types of mobilities. Yeah. Second change from last year, from 2025, that it's still valid, is that one sending organization can send maximum three person for a course at a time. Yeah, so so you can no longer send more than 3% at the course, but you can send two different courses at the same time. Yeah, they just have to be different courses. And actually, we have organized several parallel sessions, and this week we have one of parallel session where we give an opening, 1 hour opening to everyone, and then we split the two groups in two completely different courses. And this is, of course, allowed even to more than two courses. We can have even 3 courses at the same time if we have enough demand. And for consortium, you can then send 10 persons per course. Yeah. Another limitation from 2025 that is still valid for 2026 is that one person can attend only one course per project. Yeah, so you can no longer attend more than one course, but you can choose if you attend a 5, 6, 7, or 10 days course. Yeah. On top of attending one course, that person can also go to job shadowing visits. There's no limitation of how many job shadowing visits they can go to. They can teach abroad, or if they are planning a learner mobility, they can go to a preparatory visit or accompanying a person in learner mobilities. Yeah. So this is important news, especially for Erasmus coordinators, that they have to do a lot of networking and manage a lot of mobilities. Also from 2025, there is the restriction that the activities must take place in the country where the host organization is legally established. For example, we are established in Tenerife. We do our courses in Tenerife, but if we would like to do, for example, in mainland Spain, we could do that, but we could not do host courses in any other countries than Spain. Yeah. So make sure if you go to a training course that the host organization is registered in the country where you're doing the course. Also, the mobility activity can only take place in one country. Yeah, in some situations there were before organizations that were doing 5 days course, 2 days in one country and 3 days in another because they were close to the border, and this is no longer possible. So these were the summary of the changes, just some quick tips about how to apply and what to take into account. We strongly recommend to start already if you haven't done it yet. And create a team, yeah, with your colleagues, because it's much easier when you collaborate in a team for project writing and you have support from your directors and the management team. It's much more strong application. Yeah, it's very important to learn the terminology of Erasmus and try to use it in the application. That's why we recommend to read through the Erasmus Plus documents. Later, I'll send you some links in the presentation. And one of the most important things is to understand the requirements and the details in the guide. Yeah, so you make sure you are eligible and you make sure you fulfill the priorities and all the recommendations in the Erasmus Plus guide. Yeah. So one of the challenges is also to narrow down the project idea and structure it, because many times we want to do everything. So it has to be clear and concise for the evaluators to have it clear what you want to do with your project and how is this project, Erasmus project, fitting with your local activities and your general local plans, yeah, and with the needs of your learners, which are the ultimate beneficiaries. So you also have to think of why your idea is innovative and argue for it, of course. And in order to justify the institution needs, it's good if you can do some survey with your learners or have something to document it. Yeah. Also, as you know, you have to disseminate about the project, and it's good to include concrete actions of what will you do after your mobilities or after you're implementing the project. How will they impact your local organization, but also the local community. Yeah. So these are some very brief tips. I haven't included it about the AI here. There are some national agencies that are not very fond of having application written with AI. So we recommend there's no mention in the Erasmus Plus guide as far as I read about it. So there is no official penalizing if the application is written with AIs or no official checking as far as I know. But we recommend to use AI in a smart way to get inspired and so on, but do not copy paste the text from AI because evaluators can tell this. So this is our personal recommendation, of course, not official recommendation. All right, so now the next step is that we're gonna break in rooms. Here I included some links if you want to follow us on Facebook and Instagram to stay in touch with you. As I might not see you afterwards because after the breakout rooms, I wanted to thank you for your attention and we stay in touch. If you want to collaborate with us, of course, you can write us an email. And now I'm going to explain you how we're workshop in the networking workshop in the breakout rooms. Yeah. So once you join the breakout rooms, feel free to introduce yourself, introduce your institution, your country, your region. What is your experience with Erasmus projects? What is the topic of interests? Yeah. What topics are you working with local projects and Erasmus projects? And what are your plans for 2026 and 2027? Do you plan to write any projects? Do you want to be partners? And are you searching for organization for reciprocal exchanges and so on? Yeah. So it's up to you now. It's going to be a free time where you're welcome uh, to to divide in to share experiences. And I've just realized that I made a mistake. Yay! Because I haven't opened the microphone for questions. So before we break out in the rooms, I'm gonna try to answer your questions, and you're also welcome to use the microphone after I share that. I will start with the written questions, and then we're gonna go through we can open the microphone as well. Okay. So sorry, I'm really excited, but also nervous to have this webinar. So I'm gonna start with one of the questions that I see here. That we have: what is easier to prepare, individual or group mobility for students? Yeah. So Sylvia asked this: what is easier? The question is for whom? For the sending organization or for the host organization? Yeah, because for the host organization, so for both individual and group mobility, you can send more than one person. Yeah, the difference is that if you, for example, you, Sylvia, let's imagine, I don't know if you're from Poland or from one country. Yeah, so you want to send 5 or 10 learners from Poland. In many cases, not everyone speaks fluent English, right? So if you organize a group mobility to an already existing resource in Spain or in Italy, in another country, then that would mean that your learners, your Polish learners, would integrate in the local activity that is in the local language. So that might not be very easy to that they understand and really be able to participate. So that's why I explained that if in a way it's a bit easier if you do individual mobility, even if you have more students, because then you can arrange it with a host organization to create a mobility just for your learners. Yeah, to have someone from the host organization who speaks English and who adapts the mobility program to the needs of your learners. Yeah. For example, we have done such mobility program for seniors. Yeah. So of course we need to adapt. We adapt the program to the needs and so on of the seniors. Yeah. or we have done it for parents with of children with special needs. Yeah, so of course it's not easy to find an existing resource to that's already here. No, it's something very specific needs. Yeah, so we have organized something specifically for them. Yeah. Let me know if I answered your question. If not, please feel free to write another question. Yeah. Um, Okay, I see some. Do you have any other questions? Maybe we can, I think now you can open your microphones if you want to ask uh, some questions. I'm trying to check. Is there any question that I missed? Yeah. So please let us know if you have any other questions. Someone is asking what kind of job shadowing you can do with us in EduPlus. We have two types of job shadowing. We've had, for example, just now, like in November, October, November, we had a person from Germany job shadowing in the office for 2 months, who was doing with us. Sometimes we had this spring also in the office someone for 2 weeks. So in this case, it's a type of job shadowing where they are integrated and observing also the process behind organizing educational projects and so on. And other type of job shadowing is that you observe our teaching. Yeah, we have some activities with learners, and sometimes we have done job shadowing with the local learners. But at the moment, for example, we have very few hours with our local learners, and it's in the evening, so it's not possible to do that. So we do job shadowing during our teaching. Yeah. But job shadowing with us as a non-profit organization, it's only available for adult education sector. Yeah, you can only do job shadowing in an NGO, non-profit organization, if you have a project of adult education sector. If you have a project of school education or vocational training, then you need to do job shadowing in school education um, or a vocational training respectively. Why? Because of course you need to observe teachers or staff that are similar in your work. Yeah. And unfortunately, many people ask us if we can facilitate the job shadowing to schools here in Tenerife, and we cannot do that because Erasmus Plus does not encourage intermediary organization for Erasmus Plus projects. Yeah, if you're interested in doing a job shadowing in Spain, even if you are from a school, write us an email, and we're gonna send you the email to the international office here in Tenerife, which is the official international government department. We cannot put it here publicly, so write us an email, and we will try to help you as we can. Yeah. So the answer, to sum up, it is possible to do job shadowing with us if you are in adult education. Write us an email, and we talk details. Someone else asking can if they can do job shadowing in Spain even if they don't speak Spanish. Is it a problem? It depends in which organization you're doing the job shadowing. That's also one of the reasons why we don't do as much job shadowing as we wish with the local activities, because people do not speak Spanish, so it's hard to send them to interact with our senior learners, because many times there's nobody who speaks English them to welcome them and so on. Yeah. So even if you don't speak Spanish, write us, and maybe we find a way that you do job shadowing during one of your international projects, or during our courses, or we find a way. Someone asked, how can I get funding for the teachers training in Spain? Maybe you can send us more details. Do you mean that you want to to get funding to take your teachers to come to a training course in Spain. This is what I explained so far with the K1 mobility staff mobility project. Yeah, I will write it down. Yeah. Yeah. Any other questions? You're also welcome to unmute your microphone. Yes, someone is asking, I saw that for job shadowing, you need a mentor for every 2 teachers. Exactly. So imagine you want to send one person to job shadowing at a time, then you just have one mentor, that's it. If you want to send 3 persons to job shadowing, we're talking about the same institution at the same time, yes? In the same week, let's say, yeah? So if you want to send 3 teachers or staff and the same week in the same institutions, 2 of them would need to have a mentor and another one would have to have a different mentor. Yeah, this and the mentors are the staff or volunteer from the host organizations. Yeah, are the ones that they're gonna job shadow. Yeah. Someone is asking, can I apply for a K1 project for adult learners and job shadowing in the same application? Yes, you can. As I explained in the previously, I'm going to search for the slide to show you again. In the same application, you can write for different types of mobilities. Yeah, so I'm just gonna put the application, the presentation again. So in the same application, in the same K1 staff mobility application, you can include staff going to training courses, staff going to job shadowing visits, one of your staff from the sending organization go to teach abroad, invite an expert from another country from Europe to come to teach to your local organization, and mobilities for learners. If you include mobility for learners, you can include preparatory visit as well. Okay.